Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fearlessly Authentic. I'm your host, Jodi Bauer, and I am so happy to have you join me for this episode today. This is the show that educates you, empowers you, maybe we entertain you a little bit, and inspires you to live your most fearlessly authentic life. Because in my humble opinion, if we're not trying to do that every single day, then what the heck are we doing here? We are a top 5% globally rated podcast, and it's all because of you. So please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, share with all of your friends, and we really appreciate you listening. Let's get on with the show. I am so happy to be talking about this subject today, reinvention, because I think we are all trying to be the best version of ourselves at all times. And sometimes it requires reinvention. And reinvention isn't always easy and it's scary. And that's why we need to be fearlessly authentic when we do that. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me while I took a little bit of a pause and needed to take a break and get myself all situated again in the mind and body. And now I am back and I cannot wait to share this episode with you. I've reinvented myself more times than I can count as a mom, as a fitness competitor, as an entrepreneur, and as a woman learning to love herself again. And every single time I've done it, it's led me closer to who I really am. And it's not always easy. So the truth about reinvention, it sounds easy. We try to do it, but as I said, it's scary. Reinvention doesn't happen just when we have a crisis. It's a calling. And I think so many of us think, well, you needed to reinvent yourself because a crisis did happen, but that's not true at all. And when I think about it, for me, every time I've reinvented myself, it's when I stepped over fear or embraced fear. I kind of like to look at fear as something that I step over. And at the same time, I'm embracing it. But I always look at fear as like, there you are, fear. I'm going to step over you and I'm just going to go after what I want. Contrast to how society sees reinvention, starting over, right? Versus how we define it, stepping into who you are or who you've always been. And that goes back to being fearlessly authentic. So we can think about reinvention as starting over, because for some people, reinvention is they're starting over, like a coming to Jesus moment, a coming to owning it, coming to understanding what your purpose is in life. But really, you get to define it. What does it mean? It means stepping into who you might want to be at that time, who you're trying to be. I know for reference, when I think back to how many years it's been, back in 2002 when I got divorced, and I think about, I wasn't even thinking about a reinvention. That was the last thing on my mind. All I knew was that where I was in that relationship wasn't a place that I was growing anymore. We couldn't come to a meeting of the minds and say, for me to say, hey, I need to do more. I need to grow more. I'm very happy being a mom and a wife, but I need to do something more for me. I just don't want to have a title that I am for somebody else. I need to do something that fulfills me and makes me feel like I have a constant purpose. So for me, it could be a combination of starting over and stepping into who you've always been. And when we let go of the old version of us, there is that fear. I even see it, like I'm watching Love is Blind right now. And there's a girl on the show, if you've been watching it, Sparkle Megan. She gave herself her own name, her own nickname. I'm okay with that, whatever. A lot of people are making a big deal about her giving herself a nickname. And she is very ambitious and she's made money on her own and she's very proud of her accomplishments. But what she fears is that she is going to continue to fall for the same kinds of men who she allowed access to in her life. And she's at the point where, is she going to choose a man who is very different from her, who lives a different lifestyle? Or is she going to choose a man who lives a similar lifestyle? They have the same outlooks on life. So her fear right now is, if I choose the same guy over and over again, it's going to be the same situation over and over again. But here's the truth. The truth is, that she is attracted to that same kind of man. That's why she keeps going after them. But maybe it's something that she needs to do differently. I'm not saying that there's any blame not to put on the men that she's been in, but in a relationship, it's a two-way street. It's not one person or the other, it's the way you communicate. And I remember when I got divorced, I was listening to Tony Robbins tapes in my car. And one of the things he talks about is relationships. And he talks about relationships are different with everybody. It's because of the way you relate to a person at that time in your life of that version who you are at that moment. And that's why children that from, parents who have multiple children, each child is so different. There might be some commonality, there probably will be, but in the personalities, you'll notice that where you see a family of two or three or more, everybody has their own personality, and it's because the parents are different. I mean, it's the way the child is born. Naturally, their personality, nature versus nurture, right? So, nature, how they're born versus nurture. Their parents and the way they're being parented at that time in their parents' life is going to have an impact on that child and how they view life and how they see themselves and how they interact. And their relationship with their parent is going to be different than the relationship that their siblings might have with the parents, because their parents aren't the same people 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, right? So when I'm a firstborn, and so if you're a firstborn listening, you know that your parents didn't know what the hell they were doing. And all we do is try to do the best job. There is no handbook for being a first time mom or dad. You can read all you want, but you're going to interpret it the way you are, the way you want to. And hopefully, we are all the best parents that we can be at different points in our life, different seasons of our lives, because we want this child, we want to make this child happy, and we want to nurture them and give them everything that they need to get out into the world and prosper and be happy. And so when it comes to relationships, that Sparkle Megan is talking about how she doesn't want to pick the same kind of guy. Well, it's only the same kind of guy if you're the same kind of person going into that relationship. So where she's torn right now is, do I go with somebody completely different, or do I go with the same kind of maybe asshole guy that I went with before? But if you're different, Megan, then you're probably going to treat the relationship differently. And if you've done some work on yourself and you know what went wrong, you're going to make sure that you don't do those things and you're not going to accept those things of your partner. So I think that, when we talk about the fear that comes from letting go of the old version of ourselves, I see a lot of that in these love reality shows. And I see that happening when I make certain decisions in my life, letting go of the person I was, because there are parts of my personality and who I was that I really liked. And then there are things about my personality that I've always wanted to improve on. And so for me, that fear of letting go of who I was, maybe it's the identity that I had in society. When I was married to the father of my children, we had a very beautiful life and lifestyle. And when we got divorced, obviously it changed a lot for me. As much as he wanted to keep me in the same lifestyle, it definitely changed. He knew it was going to change. That's for another podcast. And again, as I'm going through this second divorce, you know, I've talked about it before. There's some shame, there's some worry, like, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't this relationship successful? What could I have done differently? Was this the right person for me in the first place? And at that time, when he asked me to marry him, that was the right person for me. And for many, many years while I was married to him, that was the right decision for me. And then I started struggling with, this doesn't feel right anymore. So I think for me, I was open, very open to let go of the old, quote unquote, old version of me and really welcoming the identity of who I was to become. There's a part of me that I think all of us feel that we don't like any discomfort, but when we're growing, we need to go through that mucky, yucky stuff of feeling uncomfortable and then getting comfortable with this new version of ourselves and where we want to go, what we want to do. To me, it's exciting. To me, that part's not scary. I found this quote and I don't remember who said it, saw it online. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to stop being who you're not. And that also goes back to fearlessly authentic. Stop being who you're not. And as soon as I feel, whether it's a friendship or a work relationship or a romantic partner, that I'm not being who I am because I was somebody I wasn't happy being with in my first marriage, that I'm hyper vigilant about always being really authentic to who I am. Now, that doesn't mean, and I just got off a call with somebody, we were talking about authenticity. Authenticity doesn't mean that I'm going to share every aspect of my life with you or with anybody else. That just means that I'm being true to myself. And we have to remember exactly what that means. What does it mean to be really true to yourself? It means that whatever your goals are, whatever your purpose is, that you're going after that every single day and you stay true to that. You don't conform to what society thinks you should be. That was a big message for me for the longest time is society. When I made global news with Sports Illustrated Swim, it was my message to them. The 1 minute I had to pitch myself to be in the magazine was to be in that edition of Sports Illustrated Swim, is that society shouldn't put women over 55 in a box, that the old ideas of what women should look like and act like and sound like are not the same as they used to be. So why are all of these women over 55 conforming to an old idea of what we should be like? Most of these women who have conformed to what society thinks we should be, and we've made a lot of moves since 2019, let me tell you. I even had women at my studio who were older than me and said, don't you think that dress is too short? Don't you think your hair is too long? Yeah, I used to get a lot of that. Now it's very different as we talk about menopause more. But don't stay anywhere or with anyone when you have to stop being you, and trust your gut. I know somebody who's going through a change right now and she wants to trust her gut, but she's scared. And that's where the fear comes from. It's, how do I make sense of what my heart is telling me and what my gut is telling me? And that is really hard. At the end of the day, I will always suggest to you to trust your gut. That's why we have a gut instinct. That's why we feel like sucker punch that gut. That gut is so telling. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. Trust me. It's not always easy. And I have found that in relationships that I've been in where I didn't want to let go, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. I knew that the relationship in the long run, and not for the man that I'm getting divorced from, because I really thought we were going to make it. I thought I was going to grow old and die with him. But in other relationships that I was in where I loved the person, or what I thought I was love for that person, but I knew that that person wasn't good for me. It's like a food that isn't good for you, but you eat it anyway. A drug that isn't good for you, but you take it anyway. So it's knowing that hit of dopamine that you get when you're with that person, it's only momentarily that hit of dopamine, but how do you feel afterwards? And again, I was talking to somebody about this. I think I've had one night stand in my whole 64 years of life. And, you feel like shit after a one night stand, but at the moment it felt good. So I would say to you, trust your gut in doing what you feel is right, but also you need to think about the consequences, right? If you know you can handle the consequences, and sometimes we don't even know what the consequences are going to be. So maybe that one night stand thing wasn't a really good example, but there's a lot of aspects of trusting your gut. There's trusting your gut and not necessarily having a plan. So when I left my husband last August, I didn't have a plan. I just knew that this was no longer a healthy relationship for me, and I needed some time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I wasn't leaving him at the moment. I just needed a place of quiet, not chaos, to figure things out. And then what happens is when you do take that leap of faith on yourself, not even knowing that you're probably on the precipice of reinventing yourself, but you don't know any of this yet. All you know is that this doesn't feel right for me anymore, and I need to change what I'm doing with the person I'm doing it. And maybe I just need to pause and take a break so I can stop and think. And what's the worst case scenario? That's what I went through my head. What's the worst case scenario? Not ever did it come to my mind that I was on the precipice of reinvention. All I knew was that I needed to be in a different place. And I trusted the universe to guide me. And I guess I trusted my gut that, like always, I would figure shit out. And I did. And it was scary. And it's always scary when you take a risk on yourself. But your inner knowing, your inner intuition, knowing that, hey, I can get through this. I can get through this. You already know. I remember my therapist saying to me, you already know about whatever it was that I was trying to figure out with her. You already know the answer to this. So when my daughters or my clients ask me a question, I'm like, you know the answer. Just say it out loud. And it might feel really scary. But every time we take that big leap of faith, we are entering a new us. And I think that's exciting and thrilling. So I've had so many reinventions in my life. It's overwhelming sometimes. You know about my divorce at 42, and then I started competing, and then I created Jodi Fit. Even though Jodi Fit was already in the making at 28, she was just in the background. And then all of this at 40, after I got divorced, I was like, let's go. All the things that I wanted to do in my 30s that I wasn't allowed to do, I was just like, whoa, let's do this. Let's do this. I have everything to gain and nothing to lose. I was scared, but I did it anyway. And I think that's the biggest point in bringing this all the way around is even though you're scared, do it anyway. There's that self-belief, even though you doubt yourself. Okay, I know I'm saying two things at one time, but you have an inner knowing. You have to be honest with yourself. You have that inner knowing of understanding. I've used this example before. I'm not going to do something. You're not going to do anything that's totally out of your realm. So I'm 5 feet tall. I am not going to try to be a world-class pole vaulter, right? But I do have a good head on my shoulders. I do know when things don't feel right. And I do know when I can't breathe anymore, figuratively, where I can't breathe anymore and I need air. And that's what happened, is that I couldn't breathe anymore and I didn't feel safe anymore. So this is big. Realizing reinvention begins the moment you take your power back is huge. As soon as you take your power back, wherever you are in life, that is when you start realizing reinvention. It's getting that power back. That doesn't mean being better than anyone. That just means understanding the power within yourself, stepping into that power, stepping into your fearlessly authentic self, owning it, owning who you are. I'm not going to take this anymore. I am going to take back my power. And that's when you start reinventing yourself without even realizing what you're doing, because I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that in every situation where things have changed, I needed to stand in my strength. I needed to stand in my power. It's scary, and I was scared. I was scared in the big things that changed my life. And I would say my divorce when I was 42, stepping on stage for the first time, getting divorced now again, and Sports Illustrated Swim. Those were all really scary things, but they were also very freeing. Freeing in knowing that I was following my intuition, and that freedom became my fuel. Every single time I left a relationship, I was scared. And I've talked to so many women about this subject. Every time they left a relationship, they were scared, but it ended up becoming their strength. What scares you will give you your strength. I was scared to get divorced at 42. I was scared to start competing at 47 because everybody told me I was too old. But I said, screw them. I'm not going to listen to anybody. I know what I'm doing. I was trusting myself. I was leaning on me. I was leaning into who I was. I was owning it. I owned it so hard that I knew it was going to happen. Now, did I think I was reinventing myself at the time? Hell no. No. I was just doing what my gut told me, where, let's just say, the universe was leading me and I was allowing myself to be led. That's what happens when you follow your intuition. And sometimes it seems so far-fetched. I had nobody who believed in me when I did that. I had nobody who believed in me when I got divorced. I had nobody who believed in me when I started competing. But guess what? They started believing in me when I started winning. And that just kind of sucked. But and I wasn't the kind of person, I'm still not the kind of person who will say, I told you so, because that's just not who I am. So then after winning those two world bikini shows at 49, I opened up my own studio at 50, Jodi Fit. That was another reinvention. Like I said, Jodi Fit was always a part of me since the time I was 28, but now Jodi Fit is becoming a realization. It's becoming who I really am. And that was a big reinvention, I'd have to say. I became a business owner when I was 50 years old. I was Jodi Fit. And everywhere I went, everybody knew Jodi Fit. Jodi Fit, Jodi Fit, Jodi Fit, Jodi Fit. So here I was at 50 years old, becoming an entrepreneur. All I knew was that what I was going to offer women was something they wanted, because I was a trainer at a big box gym, at several big box gyms, and I knew that women didn't want to be on display in front of a bunch of men, and that they needed a private place to be themselves, to be their authentic selves. And we could talk openly, and we didn't have to whisper in our conversations. And I knew that what I was building, they would come, right? Build it and they will come. That's not really the saying. I don't have it right now, but that's the gist of it. Build it and they will come. So I was becoming a businesswoman at 50. That was another reinvention, that big reinvention through entrepreneurship and turning my faith of knowing that this is what these women wanted. I turned my fear into faith. I knew I was scared to open up Jodi Fit. It was costing me a lot of money, but I had faith that they would come. For Sports Illustrated Swim, I didn't want to do it. I had just gotten married. I was 58 years old. I was done competing. I was done being in a bikini. And my daughter was like, Mom, you got to do this. You've got to talk about what you've been talking to women about for the last 10 years. You've got to let them know that women can't be put in a box and told that they're too old. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Just do it. So I made the video and I didn't get through the first round. So I had to come down to South Beach for the open casting call. And the next thing I know, I'm being called by Good Morning America, People Magazine, and people wanting to know my story. That was the bigger picture here. It wasn't about swimsuit. It was about showing women what's possible when you stop asking for permission. Now, moving, getting separated, and this new chapter that I'm in the middle of right now. Reinvention. I never thought I would be reinventing my life after 60. I never. I'm going to be 65 in December, and if you told me that I would be reinventing my life again, I would say, no way. But I also would have said, no way would I have been a two-time world bikini champion at 49. No way would I have gotten divorced from the man I was married to for 17 years. No way, no way, no way, no way. No way would I have all these fabulous friends. No way would I lose my friends after my divorce. Like, no way was any of this going to happen. But it did. And I faced it with faith in me, even though I was scared. I just did it. Remember what I just said. It wasn't about the swimsuit. It wasn't about getting into Sports Illustrated Swim. It was about showing women that's what's possible when you stop asking for permission. I didn't ask anybody's permission to leave this second time. I didn't ask anybody. Very different than when I was 42. And probably because, I had young children and it was a bigger, quote unquote, bigger time, bigger decision because of my children. Reinvention, I want you to hear me on this. Reinvention is never about proving yourself. It's about returning to yourself. It's always about coming back to who you are, taking the power within you and finding the strength to step into that power, step into that strength, and owning who you are, because we're always changing. And I kind of think that people shouldn't be married forever and ever because we all do change. And God bless the couples that stay together forever because they figured out how to make it work. And maybe some of them live kind of separate lives, but it works for them. It just didn't work for me. I wasn't able to make it work. We didn't have those open conversations. And this is mostly conversation with the dad of my daughters. Reinvention is never about proving yourself. It's about returning to yourself because we know who we are. We know who the real us is. And when we find that we're living differently, like with our purpose and Do you ever have that feeling where it's like, this doesn't feel like me anymore? You look around, you're like, these people don't feel like my friends anymore. Like the conversations feel off. They feel weird. I don't think I vibe with that person anymore. Have they changed? Have I changed? Have we both changed? We don't vibe. And I think that's what happens in a lot of marriages is that you start changing. And again, God bless the ones that can change but still stay together. But I think it happens in friendships too. And you see friends come and go. But the ones that stay with you are the ones that aren't judging you, could understand what you're going through, or maybe you take a time away from one another and come back to each other. And I've done that with some friends where maybe I was going through like a weird tough time, or maybe they were going through a weird tough time and I couldn't relate to what they were going through, or maybe didn't understand it, didn't like what I saw, or they didn't see something that they cared to see anymore. So you kind of take a step back and then you come back to that relationship again. I think that's what's beautiful about friendships and about understanding who you are and how you want to live your life. So, in order to reinvent ourselves, and I don't think anybody wakes up one morning and says, well, I'd like to reinvent myself. I don't think anybody ever says that. I think it just happens. But it's not just because of something we're reacting to something, but we want to change. And sometimes reinvention happens, it's a cause and effect. But when we do want to start changing things in our life and reinventing a new life, a new me, we have to make sure that we're choosing courage over comfort because there ain't nothing that I was comfortable about driving down from Connecticut to Miami. I was scared. I really didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that I had to fucking do this because growth never feels good at first. It always feels really, really, really uncomfortable, but it will always bring us to where we want to go. And I've talked a lot about trusting our gut, trusting our intuition, trusting that over fear, intuition over fear. For so many years, I allowed fear to stop me, to be the biggest obstacle in letting me reach my potential until I finally said, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not happy with what I'm doing, and I'm letting fear stop me. And my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, she was always the brazen one, the bold one. She was the one jumping off the diving board and I was always the scaredy cat. And she would always be saying to him, come on, Joe, do this with me. I'm like, scared, scared, scared. And I think as a little girl, whatever was happening to me at that point, maybe I was just a scaredy cat, who knows? But it's about doing things more and more and more often, putting the reps in when you're scared. If you keep choosing to feel a little uncomfortable, knowing that it's going to get you where you want to be, if you could stand the discomfort, I promise you your life will improve because you'll get closer to being who you want to be rather than the person you're trying to be right now and you're miserable. You can't hold on to the old and reach for the new at the same time. It's like, who do I want to be? Who am I now? And what do I want to become? Where do I see myself in 5 years? What really makes me happy? If I'm still where I was a year ago or 2 years ago, I'm never going to get to where I want to be in 2 years. I have to let go. And when I left Connecticut, I let go physically. And then it took me a while emotionally. I was doing it a little bit, but this whole year has been about letting go of it emotionally because letting go of something that you thought was real and would be forever is really, really hard. And that's why I had to take a pause and talking about things here and online because it was too much. I wasn't processing it well enough to talk about it. It was too emotional for me. So lucky for me, and if you are contemplating a change in your life, whether it's a job, a relationship, friends, where you live, the thing that's gotten me through are my friends and family. My friends really showed up for me, and my daughters really showed up for me. And I can't tell you how grateful I am. And the people that didn't show up for me, I wasn't surprised about. When you get older, Your friends become less and less because you really regard the really important ones, and you know that they're holding you as a priority and you back for them. Like it gets to be more honest and real as you get older, and not older necessarily my age, but past your 20s. So I felt safe. I felt more empowered. I felt like I could be my real self around them, and the friends that I could speak to about who I really, really am and what I was really, really going through, they made me feel really safe, and I will forever be grateful. Self-trust is the hardest but most freeing part of all. So, when I left Connecticut, I trusted that the process that would happen would be okay. I was trusting the process. That to me, 20 years ago was the scariest fucking thing in the world. But now I was more balanced in who I was, understanding who I was, who I am, what I can do, that was freeing to me. As I was driving down to Florida, all I could think about was, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I know where I'm going, but I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where this is going to take me, but I have to trust myself that I'll figure it out. And I did. It's been hard, but I've done it. Remember, you might be scared, but think about doing it anyway. You're not behind in anything that you're doing right now. You're not behind. You're right on time. That is something that I've had to tell so many people and myself. I'm not behind because I know how hard you are on yourself. You're not behind. You're right on time. I would love to hear from you. And if you're struggling with the next phase of your life, wherever it is, no matter what age you are, because this isn't just for women in their 60s, it gets harder as we do get older because we get more scared about maybe our health, depending on others. I don't want to depend on my children for anything. And that's why it's so important for me to stay healthy and well, and why I do make my health and wellness a priority, and why I love working with women who I can help as well. I hope this has been really helpful to you if you're going through something right now. You can reach me at jodi@jodiharrisonbauer.com or find me at all social platforms at Jodi Harrison Bauer. So please feel free to DM me. I am the only one who answers my DMs, so you don't have to worry about anybody else listening. I want to thank you guys for listening today. I'm so happy to be back. Remember, be you, be bold, and be fearlessly authentic. And make sure you rate, review, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.